Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Are you ready for Red Dawn? The movie, not the recent one, but the original one, the Red Dawn, the only Red Dawn there is. Are you ready for it? For most in the hardcore prepper survivalist world, Red Dawn is really more of a fantasy for most. In my experience of talking to people, most people at their gut don't really think that there's a chance that America could be invaded, that we could actually be fighting on this soil foreign troops. Some of you do, but from my experience, many of you don't. And I'm not here to tell you or even to suggest that it may happen, but maybe we should be rethinking that as things continue to progress. Now, of course, I am somewhat decked out in a way that would be kind of a militia or a Minuteman, I guess we could say, in case that happens. And of course, yes, you can all say, I'm doing this for show to gather attention, and that's fine. But having this kind of gear available and knowing how to use it properly might not be a bad idea. If you've been watching in the news for the last few days, things seem to be kind of at a pivot point when it comes to Russia and Europe and China and the United States and Taiwan. A lot of things seem to be happening. The offensive of Ukraine onto Russia, it's really hard to tell exactly what's going on, but based on the reports that most of us are seeing, it does look like Russia's doing a pretty good job. In fact, Biden, White House, announced that they were rushing armored vehicles over to Ukraine because, well, so many of them have already been destroyed. In fact, reports that I've seen, upwards of 30% of the Bradley fighting vehicles that we sent over there have already been destroyed, and that report was from a couple of days ago, so it could be even more. About half of the Leopard 2 tanks that were sent over there apparently have also been destroyed, but there's more than that. Russia has been, in the last several days, making threats against the communication cables that run across the Atlantic Ocean, saying that they would consider that now fair game based on the infrastructure destruction of Russia, the pipeline and the dam and the bridge and so on. A lot of things moving around, including nuclear tactical nukes into Belarus, and Poland is encouraging NATO to respond to that. Apparently, from the reports that I'm getting, is Poland has a pretty large force of troops that they say they're ready to send into Ukraine. They're just waiting for the time and waiting for some support from NATO, but they're ready to send troops into Ukraine. We are sending F-22 jets over to Jordan to add some security because of Russia's aggressive tactics with their fighter jets, which is, of course, just kind of prodding the bear along. And then it's not any better with China. The conflict, at least at this point, when it comes to us and China, just seems to be tensing up more and more. And I've talked about that in the last several days. China is definitely trying to establish themselves as the world leader, and the world leader when it comes to peace. Over 20 new countries have applied to join the BRICS Bank and the BRICS agreement, including countries like Egypt and several in Africa. They're dropping the US dollar and moving to either local currencies or the Chinese yuan. And China and Russia and all of those, they're opening the doors and the floodgates to cryptocurrency, while America and the West are doing everything they can to shut it all down. Just a lot of strange happenings. China has even petitioned for Palestine to be accepted as a nation state in the United Nations, and in fact had invited the Palestinian leadership over to China and gave them a full state honors, as if any other world leader came to China. So we're definitely seeing battle lines being drawn. I'm hearing reports of a lot of movement here in the United States, whether it be planes, missiles, troops. I'm hearing from individuals saying that are currently active duty, saying that the immediate focus right now is potentially going to war with China. And then today, there has been a major global cyber attack. 24 hours ago, a top Russian hacker group made threats that they would shut down the European banking system. And then as of this morning, major widespread global cyber attacks have been happening against our government departments and agencies and others around the world. So far, what I'm seeing is that they're blaming Chinese hackers, but it's very possible that Russia is involved in this, or it could be our own people involved in this, because the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, as I've shown you, has been warning about this for a year now, that this cyber pandemic is going to be worse than any health crisis we ever faced. And it's coming at us. They almost promised that it would happen before the end of the year. And we're seeing a massive uptick of major attacks in the cyber world. So, all that, and of course much more, I'm saying to at least open your mind a little bit to the possibility of we, the people, facing a foreign adversary on our soil. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I think more and more as this all progresses, we should at least entertain that thought. Like I said, I think we've been conditioned as Americans to believe that it is just never possible. I mean, it's not happened since the War of 1812, and of course everyone quotes the Japanese admiral that, you know, if they couldn't invade America because everyone would have a gun pointed at them. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I'm talking about. And so I think as Americans, and it could be part of the big American psyop to condition us that it could never happen. But I'm here to tell you that it actually is happening already. Estimates are about 300,000 or more illegals are pouring across the border now, last month and most likely this month, maybe even more. And a lot of those, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of them, are Russian nationals and Chinese nationals, and then others are just from all over the world, Middle East, South America, all over the place. And while maybe not every one of them, and probably not most of them, are coming across as soldiers or even soldiers of fortune, you have to believe that at least a good portion of them are coming here to eventually just disrupt everything, whether it's our economy or social services, police services, emergency services, whatever it is. It's weakening us and it's disrupting everything. And along the way, there could certainly be some foreign agitators that are coming across the border with the intent and purpose to cause widespread destruction. It doesn't really take that many. It doesn't take battalions and battalions of soldiers coming across our borders to cause disruption. Power plants, power junction points, dams, trains, train yards, planes, bridges, buildings, refineries, factories, all of those can be damaged and completely taken out really by just a few people if they know what they're doing. So it doesn't take a whole lot. And then if those things continue to happen, and if World War III does happen, and I'm telling you, it looks like it's almost a certainty at this point. It's not if, it's just when. Will we ever face a moment that we, the people, are potentially fighting foreign troops on American soil? And I know that there's going to be all the arguments that America is a perfectly defensible a piece of land. We've got the mountains on one side and we've got mountains on the other side and all this kind of stuff. But I'm here to tell you that we can't always guarantee that, and we should at least entertain that thought and have a contingency plan in place for that. If you live in areas, whether on the east or west coast, or major cities or major infrastructures, areas, major military facilities, you could find yourself in danger of a Red Dawn moment where they're literally paratrooping in your front yard in the local city streets. I know that sounds a little extreme, and it probably is, but it may not be too far from the truth. And we should at least entertain this. We also have to consider that our own military just seems to be weaker and weaker, and we just don't know yet exactly how bought and paid for the military leadership, and especially the leadership in the White House is. So at this point, I don't think anything's off the table. And while you may be planning for a grid down scenario or massive cyber attacks or, all of this other stuff, eventually finding ourselves fighting foreign troops on our own soil, it's possible. And I don't think we should completely discredit that. And along the way of planning for civil unrest, martial law, and just defending yourself from all the, crackheads and toothless meth heads that may try to come and take your stuff because everything is just falling apart. Well, we also have to, and probably should, have some consideration for the possibility of foreign adversaries. Again, I know it may not be the most probable thing that could happen, but I think it is on the table, and we should probably plan for it. It's not a whole lot different than planning for anything else. And if you, again, I was talking to a friend just yesterday that has a lot of combat experience and very highly trained combat experience. And he was talking about the movie Red Dawn, and he said, it's actually a pretty good movie when you look at it from a tactical standpoint. They did a pretty good job of it, and it probably shows a pretty good scenario of what could happen, and not just the falling back to a place that you have stored equipment and then falling back to a very remote location. The possibility of people in your group turning against you, kind of losing their minds and running off to be saved by the captors. Whatever it is, it's actually not a bad scenario to watch, to learn from. Now, of course, just watching a Hollywood movie is not going to cover everything. You actually have to get out there and train. You have to get out there and learn how to use your equipment. You have to learn how it functions and how you function. It's not so much as learning how good the equipment is. Most equipment, with the exception of some, is probably better capable than the shooter itself is capable. So it's not so much learning the capabilities of the weapon system or the equipment. It's learning your capabilities and your limitations and what you can do with it all. Many of us, including myself, fall into the category of getting older, having a few aches and pains and medical problems, aren't as in shape as we once were 20, 30 years ago. And we have extra things to take care of. For those of you that have fought in foreign wars and fought on foreign soil, it's a little different when you're out there with other guys that all know what they're doing and that can kind of all take care of themselves, than with it's you and maybe a few other friends, and you have your wives and your children to take care of and protect also. It kind of throws a wrench into the whole system. So it's not just good for you and your buddies to go out and train and goon around into the woods, but it's also good to incorporate your wives and children into that so that they can be part of the training and know what to do. Because it would just be a pretty awful scenario for you and your guys to know what to do, and then it all fall apart because the wives and the children are panicking and they have no clue what's going on. So incorporate the whole family in training, and remember that because you have a wife and children to take care of, or if you're a wife and you're part of that defense and you're taking care of and defending the children, your first priority may just be to take care of them and protect them, and it could be falling back and having a retreat plan so that you can get out of harm's way. I know, again, we're speaking of extreme scenarios, but folks, how many extreme scenarios have we experienced over the last few years? Think about it. Don't downplay it. Don't kind of, it's not really been that bad looking back. I mean, things are still somewhat normal. Don't do that. Take it for what it is and realize that we've seen some pretty extreme things, and the whole world has seen sometimes even more extreme. And so the possibility of extreme things happening yet again on American soil, I think, are pretty good. And we should start planning for that and preparing and just generally getting your houses in order. Folks, you need to be preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.